If elected governor, would you strongly support the removal of sales tax on groceries? And would you, on the first day of the legislature in your State of the State address, strongly urge the legislature to take rapid action to get that done?
Tommy Ahlquist, the first answer is yours.
Absolutely. 100% on day one. We need to repeal the grocery tax. In fact, many of us here that pay taxes, as you know, Tuesday's a big day. We need to start paying more attention on how the government spends our money and change from a paradigm of spending money to investing money. If we do that, there's plenty of tax dollars there to do the things we need to do, to invest in our future, to invest in infrastructure in our kids, but also to invest our money properly as a state. We have a lot of challenges, but there are a lot of tax dollars right now that are simply not effectively spent in this state. We can easily repeal the grocery sales tax, but the other thing we need to do in this state is we need to have some tax vision, multi-year vision. Where are we? How do we keep it flat and fair for the families and the small businesses around Idaho? For too long in this state, as long as you were a big business, as long as you had a lobbyist or a special interest to take care of you, you were looked out for. It is time to have tax policy in Idaho that favors the small businesses. The entire economy rests on those small businesses, and that's who will protect the families and small businesses of Idaho.
Next response, Mr. Labrador.
Regina, absolutely. I think we need to repeal the grocery tax, but we also need to lower all the taxes in Idaho. I have a plan that I call my 555 plan. I want to reduce the corporate tax, the individual tax, and the sales tax to 5%. But we can only do that if we get rid of all the loopholes in the tax code. For too long, for the last 15, 20 years, the Idaho legislature has unfortunately been giving loopholes to special interest groups and special companies and giving these exemptions. Instead of giving a broad base to every Idahoan, they've only been picking winners and losers. One of the reasons I'm running for governor is to make sure that there are no more winners and losers, that the governor's office will no longer pick what companies are going to come to Idaho. I think the economy and the market needs to decide what companies come to Idaho. What I want to do as your governor is I want to lower your taxes, lower your regulations, create a business environment where everyone can thrive. And then you guys decide with the economy and the free market, you decide what businesses are going to thrive. It's not my job to decide that. It's your job. And I think with my plan, you will see the Idaho economy grow in a tremendous way.
Brad Little, your response?
Yes, on the first day. That is, besides groceries being something that's a fundamental need, it is incredibly unfair to the border communities where those small communities have lost their retail because it's moved to the other state. By allowing us to have the same advantage as all the other states where our citizens don't have to pay tax on their groceries, it'll proliferate a lot of the economy, particularly around the borders of our great big state. I've got a tax plan where I talk about removing and moving down income taxes by $350 million, where any new tax break has to have an equal and opposite fiscal impact so that there's an incentive for no new impacts going into the system. Good tax policy should be fair, simple, predictable, and competitive. And if you put all the tax decisions through that lens, Idaho will continue to be the lead state in the union in job growth and the lead state in the union in income growth.
Tommy Ahlquist, 30 seconds.
Well, I just hope you heard what Congressman Labrador just said. He said, you guys. I'm one of you guys. So while we may hear professional politicians talking about stimulating economy and taxes, I come from that real world where we know what works. We simply cannot lose our kids in Idaho anymore to other states. We need to keep our companies here, and we need to increase our wages. That will require a future that is different than our past. That will require us making changes to the policies that affect every family and small business in this state.
Thank you, Mr. Ahlquist. Mr. Labrador.
It's funny to hear Tommy talk about taxes today. When I met with Tommy 2 years ago, he was telling me he was thinking about running for governor, and he said that he didn't think we needed to lower taxes. He thought that what we needed to do is to lower the threshold for bonds so we can make it easier to increase property taxes. That has changed over the last year and a half, and just like he has changed again and again, he has flip-flopped about 10 times in this campaign because he believes that he can tell you what you want to hear instead of telling you what he believes. I have always told you what I believe. I have told you what I think is best for the state of Idaho, and I have been consistent that we need
Thank
to
you,
lower
Mr. Labrador.
taxes and create an environment so the citizens of Idaho can have a good way to have new businesses and new growth.
Mr. Little.
Well, tax policy requires two things. It requires the legislature to act and the governor to sign the bill. You have to establish tax policy by first going out and listening to the public and find out what they want in tax policy. Then you have to convince the legislature, and then you have to lead at the legislative level. I've got a long history of working with the Idaho legislature. When I was a business person, when I represented my fellow agriculturalists as a rancher and a farmer, I understand what it takes to affect tax policy. But there's something about what's taking place in Idaho that we lead the nation in job growth and we lead the nation in income growth. And our tax policy continues to have to evolve, just like it did this year when the federal government made a big tax bill. You have to adapt to that change. But you have to have a dialogue with the people, with the pay the taxes, and with the legislature to get tax policy done. I've got a history of doing that. I'll continue to do that as your governor.
Thank you, Mr. Little.